everybody. Today we're going to talk about an introduction to drawing, how to get going. The first thing you need to talk about is what tools do we need for a basic drawing lesson. So let's have a look at some of our pencils here. In most of the exercises that we do, we really just need an HB pencil over here and a 2B. Now you can use darker pencils, but these are really quite adequate for basic drawing. So HB, the H stands for hardness, the B stands for black. So the more H you have, the more hard the pencil, the more B, the more darker or softer. I would say B is a softer pencil, H is a hard pencil. We have a selection here of pencils and we work up from HB, which is your basic drawing pencil. Any student has an HB usually in their collection for school class, and it's the most common pencil. You can use a B or a 2B for your next darkest level, and we sort of gravitate between those two the most. We can get by most of our exercises just using those two pencils. But we want to work up some dark tones, and we want to talk about shading, and we want to talk about the properties of pencils. And sometimes I want to create a really dark tone in pencil, and I'll use a 6B. So we have a 3B, we have a 4B. I skipped a 5B because 5B, 6B almost the same. Let's go for the darkest one. So in our next exercise, we'll do a few experiments with B pencils, not H pencils. H pencils you can also experiment with, but they are very hard and they're very light. Sometimes artists use them by pressing very hard and you get some quite nice effects, but we don't really need to use an H pencil in basic drawing training. When you talk about using rubbers, there's a huge variety of different types of rubbers, but generally it's quite simple what they're made of. You get the general plastic rubber which you use at school. The top one in the picture here shows the one side of it is an ink rubber, which can be quite useful at times. I quite like using those. All those rubbers are useful for drawing at some point or another. The ink rubber is a heavy duty one for doing like really big mistakes. You can just use it for small areas. The general plastic one, we use that for cleaning up drawing errors. If your technique is good, you can minimize the use of a rubber, and we try not to get too addicted to the rubber as we often see students are, and we'll talk about that as we go along. The bottom rubber is a putty rubber. Putty rubbers are very, very important and very useful for drawing. For doing large areas, you can soften a drawing. For example, if you want the lines to be softer and you want to work on top of it, use the putty rubber to soften your underdrawing. You can, if you've smudged the surface with your hand while you were drawing, use the putty rubber to clean it up. So all of these rubbers are useful and worthwhile having, and we'll discuss using all of them as our exercises go along. So one of the earliest exercises we're going to do, and I do many demonstrations like this, I'm holding my knife and I'm going to try and show you how to hold it when you sharpen it. You don't do it like this. Try to use the strength of your right hand to sharpen it. It's actually completely out of control. You've got to use the strength of the left hand thumb, which you see me now trying to put the thumb on the correct place. So I'm holding that pencil in that hand and I'm using the power of my thumb. Not over there where I just get these little bits and pieces off there. I got to get a good starting point, which is there. Somewhere in the middle there is good. Yeah. Okay, now you take a good chunk out of it and don't be in a hurry. People try to do it too quickly. Just take a little piece off and don't go all the way down to the lead. Just take off little pieces at a time. Just like we sing there, and go slowly round. So what you've done is you've taken the surface layer off, the painted layer, and you've got a good way into the pencil. And what are you trying to do? You're trying to work it down so that you expose the lead of the pencil, and there we see it. Now you can expose the lead of the pencil and then leave it. It's a little sort of flat, and usually when you draw with it like that, it sharpens itself after a while. But if you want to get a nice sharp point, you just use the knife as I'm doing now, and you can actually start to sharpen the lead of the pencil as well, and you can give yourself a very sharp point, as sharp as you want. But I still say maintain that you want to expose a piece of lead there, maybe half a centimeter long, and then you're ready to go with your drawing. You don't really need to do what I'm doing here now. I'm just saying that you can, if you want to, give yourself a nice sharp point. And this is how I like to sharpen my pencil. If you use a regular sharpener that they use in schools, it gives you a very short sharp point. You draw for a little bit and it's blunt, and then you've got to sharpen it again. This way you don't really have to keep sharpening your pencil. There's a pencil I've already been using, so it starts to get a little bit blunt again, and I just take off a little bit more lead around the edge of the pencil, and we're good to go again. I'm being a little bit finicky here, finishing it off nice and sharp, just to demonstrate you can get quite a high level of precision if you want. And there you go. We have our rubbers, we have our pencils, and we're ready to go with our first drawing, which is what we're going to be doing next.